The first thing that hit me was her perfume, strong, expensive, and way too much for just a night out. It filled the room like smoke, sweet and overwhelming. A few seconds later, I heard the sharp rhythm of her heels echoing off the hardwood as she made her way toward the front door. She paused in the hallway, took one last glance at herself in the mirror like she was admiring a painting, then looked back at me. There was a smirk on her face, that smug little curl at the edge of her lips. "I am heading out on a date," she said, like she was telling me what time dinner was. "Try not to get too jealous." For a moment, I just sat there frozen, my mind blank. I stared straight at her, hoping to catch some sign that this was a joke, a twisted one, sure, but maybe a joke. But her eyes were steady. No grin, no guilt, no hesitation. Just cold certainty. She meant it, and she expected me to accept it. We had been married 7 years. 7 years of sacrifice, hard work, and building a life together. I had given her everything I had, my time, my love, my loyalty. And now, with a smirk and a shrug, she was walking out on a date like I was nothing but a roommate. She reached for the doorknob, like she figured I would stay silent and let her go. But I found my voice. "Wait." She stopped, but did not turn around. The air between us got heavy, like trying to breathe underwater. My mind was spinning, trying to process what I had just heard. "You're kidding," I said, though my voice came out weaker than I wanted. She turned her head slightly, just enough to glance back at me. Why would I be joking? That was it. The truth hit me hard, like a punch to the chest. She was serious. She was not bluffing, not testing me. The woman I had trusted with my heart was telling me she was going out with another man and doing it like it was completely normal. But it wasn't normal, and I was not going to let her walk out thinking otherwise. I was not angry. I was not begging. What I felt in that moment was something sharper, a kind of brutal clarity. I finally saw her for who she was. "Go ahead," I told her, keeping my voice even. "But when you come back, don't use your key." That got her attention. The flicker in her eyes told me she hadn't expected that. The smirk wavered, even if only for a moment. She had expected me to fall apart. She had counted on tears, shouting, maybe a pathetic plea. But I gave her none of that. She scoffed, shifting her weight like she had just heard the dumbest thing ever. "Excuse me," she said. I leaned back against the couch, calm on the outside, even though everything inside me was coming apart. But it wasn't rage I felt. It was certainty. Like something had ended, and I had no desire to bring it back. "I'm not going to sit here while my wife dresses up for another man," I said. "Whatever picture you have of me in your head, erase it. I am not that guy." She crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes, trying to get a read on me. She had been sure I would crack. Instead, she found herself up against someone who had already let go. "Not tonight," I added. She rolled her eyes. "I didn't mean it like that. You were seriously overreacting." "Overreacting?" I laughed quietly. "You just told me you were going on a date with someone else. What am I supposed to do? Wish you luck?" She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but I did not give her the chance. "Let me ask you something, Nita," I said, using her full name, the way I rarely did. It hit her like a jab. "Is this the first time, or just the first time you decided to be honest?" She hesitated, and that hesitation said everything I needed to know. I ran a hand through my hair, feeling like I was standing in someone else's house. Everything around me felt unfamiliar now, like my home had turned into a stranger's place. She let out a sigh, brushing it off like I was being dramatic. "It is not a big deal." That was it. That one sentence made something inside me snap, not with anger, but with resolve. I stepped toward her slowly. Her body tensed just a little. "Let me make this simple," I said. "Go on your date. Have fun. But when you come back, you will not be my wife anymore." Her eyes widened. "You are being dramatic." I gave her a slow smile. Not out of amusement, just steady, like a man who was done being taken for a fool. She had lost whatever grip she thought she had on this situation. Her fingers clenched the strap of her purse tightly, knuckles pale. She did not move. I could feel the shift. Just moments ago, she was brimming with confidence, tossing her words at me like they would not sting. Now she looked like someone who had stepped onto thin ice and finally heard the first crack. I did not say another word. I didn't need to. She stood there, silent, unsure, while the words I had already spoken kept ringing between us like a warning bell. "Go on your date. But when you come back, you won't be my wife anymore." I could see it. She was trying to figure out what had just happened, trying to regain her footing. But she was slipping. Then she laughed, a nervous, forced little sound. "You are ridiculous," she said. I stayed quiet. She looked into my eyes, searching for weakness. some opening, some soft spot. She found none. And then she bluffed because that was all she had left. You were bluffing, she said. The words hit me deep. That was when I realized she had never believed I would actually walk away. She thought she could push and push, and I would always stay. I stepped closer. Just one step. Go. Just one word. Clear. Firm. The smirk vanished. You were serious? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. I nodded. She swallowed hard, and I saw something crack behind her eyes. She had thought I would just sit there. Thought I'd stay put like a backup plan. Something safe to come back to after she had her fun. But that safety net? It was gone. Cut clean. I watched her hand tighten on the strap of her purse, a little twitch giving away what she was trying to hide. You're really going to throw away everything? Over one date? She asked quietly. I let out a breath. No, Nita. I'm not throwing anything away. That already happened the moment you decided this was normal. She turned her face from mine, unable to hold my gaze. Her confidence, which had been rock solid minutes ago, was now hanging by a thread. And then, just like that, she flipped the switch again. Chin up. Back straight. A defiant scoff as she turned. Fine, she muttered, and walked toward the door. I did not stop her. I did not call her name. I did not ask her to stay. I just stood there and watched. Her hand paused at the doorknob, just for a second. A heartbeat. Then she pulled it open and stepped out. The door clicked shut behind her like a final nail in a coffin. I stood still, eyes locked on the empty space she had just left behind. Reality hit hard, cold, and absolute. She was gone. And strangely, I did not feel broken. What I felt was relief. The quiet that followed wasn't hollow or heavy. It was clean, still, like the air after a thunderstorm. For the first time in what felt like forever, the house wasn't holding its breath. I stayed there, half expecting her to come running back, trying to explain herself, maybe even crying. But the longer I stood in that silence, the more I understood she was not coming back, and I was not going after her. Something in me had shifted. I had spent years walking on eggshells in that marriage. Years pretending the growing distance was nothing more than a rough patch. The late nights, the vague answers, the way she never let her phone out of sight. All the signs had been flashing for a long time. I had just refused to see them. I walked into the living room like it finally belonged to me. For once, the air in the room felt different. The tension that used to hang in every corner was gone. I sank onto the couch, feeling the weight of what had just happened, but not in a painful way. My thoughts were sharp. I did not feel hate. I did not feel despair. What I felt was clarity. She had made her choice. And for the first time in years, I was making mine. My eyes landed on the bookshelf. A wedding photo sat there, me and Nita, smiling like we had the world figured out. Her hand rested on my chest in that picture, like it belonged there. But it never had, not really. I stood, walked across the room, picked up the frame. It was heavier than I remembered. Felt like I was holding more than just glass and wood, like I was holding the last piece of a version of myself I no longer recognized. The man who thought love would be enough, who ignored every warning sign because he believed in her. I let out a short laugh. Sharp. Bitter. Then I flipped the frame, pulled the picture out, and started tearing. Rip. Rip again. And again, until all that was left was a mess of jagged pieces at my feet. That was my marriage now. I grabbed my phone. My thumb hovered over her name. Then I blocked her. Watched her name vanish from my screen like it had been pulled into the same emptiness she had left behind. I went further, logged into everything we had ever shared. Bank accounts. Streaming apps. Social media. Gone. Erased. And it did not hurt. No sadness. No regret. Just a lightness I hadn't felt in years. I did not know where she went that night. And truthfully, I did not care. Because she did not just leave for a date. She walked right out of my life. And I was not leaving the door open for her return. The night rolled on, quieter than I remembered, but not in a lonely way. More like someone had opened a window and let the smoke out. For the first time in a long time, being alone in that house didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. I didn't turn on the television. I didn't grab a drink. I just sat in that stillness, letting it wrap around me like a warm coat after years in the cold. I should have been pacing. I should have been asking myself what I did wrong. But I wasn't. There was nothing left to ask. At 10:43 p.m., I glanced at the clock. Somewhere out there, Nita was probably with him, smiling, laughing, touching him the way she used to touch me. The old me would have been tormented by that. Sleepless. Broken. But the man I was now? He didn't care. because she was not my concern anymore. Then, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me said to answer. Hello, I said. A pause. Hey, is this Owen? I narrowed my eyes. Who's this? The voice sounded uneasy, hesitant. Look, man. I wasn't sure if I should call, but I thought you ought to know. I'm with Nita right now. Something in me went ice cold, but calm. Okay, I replied. He seemed surprised at how flat my voice was. Yeah. So, she's drunk. Crying. A lot. Crying? I asked, eyebrows raised. Yeah, he said. She said she made a mistake. That she thought you'd beg her to stay or try to win her back. But you didn't. And now, she's falling apart. I leaned back, rubbing my jaw. Let me guess. She asked you to call me. There was a pause. Then he said, yeah, she did. That confirmed it. This was not about regret. It was about control. She thought she still had a grip on me, that she could pull me back if she needed to. But that version of me was gone. Tell her something for me, I said. Yeah, what's that? Tell her she made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. Silence. Then, a soft damn. I ended the call. And just like that, the last weight slipped off my chest. It was over. Really over. For the first time in years, I was not waiting for the next blow. Not wondering if I was enough. Not questioning if I was being loved or just tolerated. She had shown me exactly who she was. And I finally believed it. I set the phone down on the table and stretched my arms. Tomorrow was the start of something new. But tonight? Tonight was mine. I did not sleep, not because I was grieving, but because for once, my mind was quiet. No doubts. No stress. No wondering where she was or what she was doing. The house was mine. Peaceful. Empty in a good way. By 5 in the morning, I was already in the kitchen brewing coffee. Not because I needed to be up, but because I was awake. Truly awake. I caught my reflection in the microwave. Something looked different. Or maybe, for the first time in years, I was just seeing myself clearly. I had spent too long being the one who forgave, who hoped, who turned a blind eye for the sake of love. Last night, she left thinking I would follow. But when she saw I wasn't going to, she unraveled. Her world had always depended on the idea that I'd stay no matter what, that I would always be hers. That chapter was closed. The coffee maker beeped. I poured a cup and walked to the living room, settling into the couch. The house felt cleansed. Not empty, just cleared of years of tension and resentment. Then, there was a knock at the door. I did not rush to answer. I just sat there, watching the door, hands wrapped around the warm mug. I already knew who it was. Another knock. This one sharper. More desperate. I stood up slowly, walked over, and opened the door. There she was, Nita. Disheveled. Pale. Eyes puffy. Nita looked nothing like the woman who had walked out the night before. Her makeup was smudged, like she had wiped her eyes too many times. Her hair, which was always so perfectly done, now looked tangled and messy. I could smell the alcohol on her. It mixed with something else I recognized right away. Guilt. Her eyes were swollen and red from crying. She had not even stopped at home to clean up. She came straight here. Owen, she said, her voice soft, barely hanging together. Can we talk? I leaned against the door frame and crossed my arms. Talk about what, exactly? She paused. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something, but the words just did not come out. Finally, she managed, about last night. I did not say anything. Just watched her. Let her squirm in the silence she had created. She took a breath. Shaky. Shallow. I made a mistake. I raised one eyebrow. Is that so? She looked away. You do not understand, Owen. I never meant for it to go this far. A dry, humorless laugh escaped me. What part, exactly, did you not mean? Telling your husband you were going on a date? Walking out the door like none of it mattered? Or realizing I did not chase after you this time? She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Because she knew there was nothing she could say. Nothing that would make sense now. She had crossed a line, and she knew it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched, tense and suffocating, at least for her. Nita had always been good with words. Always knew how to twist things just right to make me question myself. To make me stay. But not this time. Eventually, she tried again. I was not thinking clearly. I guess I thought you would fight for me. That was it. That was the root of it all. I laughed again. But this time, it was real. She blinked, confused by my reaction. What's funny? She asked, her voice uncertain. You thought I would fight for you? I repeated, shaking my head. Nita, I have been fighting for you since the day we got married. And every step of the way, you kept pushing me further away. I stood up straight, letting my arms fall to my sides. So no, you do not get to be surprised that I finally stopped trying. Her face twisted like she had been slapped. She had no response, because deep down, she knew I was right. Nita, you asked for space, I said. Well, you got it. You wanted a fresh start? Congratulations, you are getting one. It just will not be with me. She took a step forward, desperate now. Owen, please. I know I messed up. I do not want to lose you. She reached for my hand, but I took a step back. Her hand froze in the air, then slowly dropped, curling into a fist. You already did, I said. And I closed the door. This time, I locked it. I stood there for a moment, taking deep breaths, not out of anger, not out of pain, but because I felt lighter, like I had let something heavy go. Turning away, I walked back into the living room and picked up the coffee I had left earlier. It was cold now, bitter, but I drank it anyway. It helped ground me, reminded me that I was still standing. The silence in the house was different now. Heavier, sure, but not in a bad way. It was final. It was closure. I could still sense her outside, probably pacing, maybe trying to decide if she should knock again. But she didn't. Eventually, I heard the sound of her footsteps slowly fade down the steps. Then nothing. She was gone. I stayed by the door for a moment, hand resting on the knob. But I did not feel doubt. I did not feel guilt. Just calm. I returned to the couch and dropped into it with a slow exhale. The cold coffee hit my tongue again, and this time I welcomed the bitterness. There was nothing left to fix. No more long talks about what had gone wrong. No more arguments that never led anywhere. There was no future left for us, and that truth, finally, did not hurt. For the first time in years, the weight of our marriage started peeling away from me, layer by layer. The silence in the room was no longer suffocating. It was freeing. Even the absence of her perfume, which used to fill every room, felt like a cleansing. Like the air had finally been cleared. Losing her, strangely enough, was helping me find myself again. But something still sat heavy in the back of my mind. Not about her. About me. How had I let it all come to this? I set the mug down and rubbed my face, staring up at the ceiling as if the answer might be written there. This was not just about what had happened last night. It was not just about her walking out. It went back years. All those little moments when she stopped caring, when her eyes lost warmth, when she started keeping parts of her life hidden from me. I started remembering how it all began. Back when I first met Nita, she had this magnetic energy. She could light up a room without trying. She had a smile that made people feel lucky just to be near her. And I really believed I was the luckiest man alive to have her. I felt like I had stumbled into something I did not quite deserve. Looking back now, maybe that was the problem. I spent our entire relationship trying to prove I did deserve her. I made myself into the kind of man I thought she wanted, dependable, stable, forgiving. Always trying to be everything she needed, even when it meant ignoring my own needs. And in the process, I handed over all the power. I let her set the rules. I let her take me for granted. I told myself that love meant sacrifice, even if it meant sacrificing my self-respect. I sat back and took a long breath. Held it. Let it go slow. That chapter of my life was done. There was no going back, no rewriting history to make it mean more than it did. I had given years to someone who never truly valued me, and I had finally accepted that. The future? That belonged to me now. I was not going to keep twisting myself into someone she needed. I was done bending, done settling. Without hesitation, I picked up my phone and started clearing everything out. Old messages, gone. Photos, deleted. The playlist we had once made together on Spotify? Unfollowed. I even changed my Netflix password. Let her figure it out on somebody else's account. It might sound petty to some, but to me, it felt like closure. It was like I was snipping off the last thin strings connecting me to a version of life I had already outgrown. I stood up, stretched out my arms, rolled my shoulders, and felt the weight slide off. This day, it was going to be different. I could feel it in my bones. This was not just another morning. It was the first step into something completely new. And for the first time in a long, long while, I was excited to see what came next. The next morning felt like waking up in a brand new world. Sunlight filtered in through the blinds, warm and steady. A soft breeze drifted through the cracked window. And for once, I woke up without a pit in my stomach. No tension in my chest. No dread hanging in the air. No wondering what mood she would be in. No checking my phone for a message that would never come. Just peace. I sat up and stretched, letting out a quiet breath. This was freedom. The hardest part had not been last night. The hardest part was this, the morning after. The moment when everything became real. When you realize that there is no turning back, and every step forward is your own. But I wasn't scared anymore. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down by the kitchen window. Outside, the world moved along like it always had. Cars rolled down the street. Neighbors walked their dogs. A few birds hopped around on the fence. And inside me, there was no more noise. Just quiet contentment. Nita had walked out thinking she was leaving me wrecked. She thought I would fall apart. But she was wrong. I was not broken. I was better off. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was her. Nita had not messaged me since the night she stood on my doorstep, begging to talk. But I had expected this. She never did let things go easy. The message was short. We need to talk. I stared at the words, letting the silence between us hang one last time. Then I typed back. There's nothing left to talk about. Before I could overthink it, I blocked her number. And just like that, it was over. No more long conversations about what might have been. No more emotional loops wondering where it all went wrong. No more waiting. She had made her choice. Now I had made mine. And I chose myself. I finished my coffee, rinsed the mug, grabbed my keys, and stepped out the front door. The sun hit my face, and it felt different. Brighter. Lighter. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I was not living in anyone else's shadow. I was not shrinking to make someone else comfortable. I was not clinging to a role I had outgrown. I was free. And I had no plans to ever look back.